Elon Musk stood in court. The judge, sitting high on the bench, looked down at Musk with a mix of impatience and frustration. This wasn't an ordinary case. Musk was being fined for wearing a simple silver Christian cross around his neck. The cross, small but visible, hung over his black t-shirt, catching the eye of everyone in the room. It seemed ridiculous to many. Fined for wearing a cross in a free country where religious symbols should be respected. But the judge was firm in his stance. The courtroom rules, strictly enforced, prohibited any display of religious symbols, regardless of who you were. "Mr. Musk," the judge said, "you have violated the court's dress code by wearing that cross. We do not allow overt displays of religious symbols in this courtroom." Musk raised an eyebrow. "So you're fining me for my faith?" he asked, his tone calm but with an edge that made the room quiet. The tension was thick, and everyone waited for the judge's response. "This has nothing to do with your faith, Mr. Musk," the judge responded coldly. "This is about upholding the neutrality of this courtroom. You are fined $10,000 for violating our rules." The fine was nothing to Musk. A billionaire like him could pay it without a second thought. But that wasn't the point. The issue wasn't the money, it was the principle. Musk wasn't one to back down from a challenge, especially when it came to matters of personal freedom. Instead of accepting the fine, Musk did something that no one expected. "I'll pay the fine," Musk said slowly. "But first, I want you to answer a question." The judge, clearly annoyed by Musk's audacity, sighed. "What is it?" Musk smiled, that infamous grin that hinted he knew something everyone else didn't. "Isn't this court bound by the Constitution of the United States?" The room fell silent. Everyone knew where Musk was going, but no one dared to speak. The judge, caught off guard, hesitated before answering. "Of course," he said. "The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, right?" Musk nodded. "So can you explain how fining me for wearing a cross, a clear expression of my religious belief, doesn't violate my First Amendment rights?" The room shifted. People were whispering, exchanging glances. Musk was turning the situation on its head, and the judge wasn't prepared for it. The judge, visibly flustered by Musk's question, straightened his posture. "Mr. Musk, you are in a courtroom, not a public space. There are rules here to ensure order and neutrality." Musk's smile didn't fade. "Neutrality? By punishing me for expressing my religion, you're doing the opposite. You're discriminating against me for practicing my faith." The judge opened his mouth to respond, but Musk wasn't finished. "I'm sure you're aware of the First Amendment, right? Freedom of religion? The Constitution guarantees that no law shall prohibit the free exercise of religion." The judge looked visibly uncomfortable. Musk was not the average defender, and everyone could see that he had the upper hand in the argument. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the judge's growing frustration. "You're twisting the argument," the judge said, trying to regain control. "This isn't about your freedom of religion. It's about the courtroom's neutrality. But isn't enforcing neutrality by banning religious symbols itself an infringement on religious freedom?" Musk pressed. "By telling me I can't wear my cross, you're not being neutral. You're actively suppressing my rights." The judge fell silent, clearly struggling to find a response that wouldn't play into Musk's argument. The courtroom was now completely still, every eye fixed on the back and forth between Musk and the judge. It was no longer about the fine, it was about something bigger. The courtroom began to murmur. Everyone knew Musk was onto something. He wasn't just challenging the fine, he was exposing a much deeper issue. The judge was visibly struggling to keep his composure. "Your Honor," Musk continued, his voice steady, "if you penalize me for wearing this cross, you're setting a precedent that anyone can be punished for their religious beliefs, even in a country founded on freedom of religion." The judge looked around the courtroom, sensing that he was losing control of the situation. "This court is not here to debate the Constitution, Mr. Musk." Musk leaned forward slightly, his eyes locked on the judge. "Then why are you punishing me for exercising my constitutional right?" The tension in the courtroom was almost unbearable. The judge had no immediate answer, and the silence that followed was telling. Everyone could see that Musk had made his point loud and clear. But Musk wasn't done yet. He leaned back, crossing his arms. "I'll tell you what," he said, his voice low but firm. "I'll pay your fine, but I'm going to challenge it, and I'm going to take this all the way to the top if I have to." The judge, clearly outmatched, said nothing. Musk had flipped the situation completely. What started as a simple fine for a dress code violation had turned into a full-blown constitutional battle. As Musk left the courtroom, the whispers followed him. Everyone knew this wasn't over. Musk wasn't just fighting for himself. He was about to take on the entire system. News of Musk's courtroom confrontations spread like wildfire. Social media was buzzing with discussions about religious freedom and whether Musk had been wronged. Hashtag Musk versus the system trended within hours. People everywhere weighed in on the debate, with many questioning how a man could be fined for wearing a symbol of his faith. "He's right," one commentator said on a popular news show. "This is America. If we can't express our faith freely, then what's the point of the First Amendment?" Others disagreed. The court has its own rules, and Musk should have followed them like anyone else. Just because he's famous doesn't mean he's above the law. But the debate had already shifted. It wasn't just about Musk anymore. It was about what the fine represented. The media frenzy intensified. News channels, talk shows, and online forums were consumed with the question: was Elon Musk's fine justified, or was it a violation of his constitutional rights? Musk himself remained relatively quiet, letting the public conversation unfold without interference. However, behind the scenes, Musk was preparing for his next move. He wasn't one to back down from a challenge, especially not one that threatened his freedom of expression. His legal team, a group of high-profile attorneys well-versed in constitutional law, was already working on a strategy. What shocked everyone was that Musk, despite being known for his technological innovations, had an unexpected legal mind. As days passed, it became clear that Musk was not only a genius in technology, but also had a deep understanding of the law. Reports began to emerge that Musk was heavily involved in crafting the legal arguments himself. He wasn't just sitting back and letting his lawyers handle the case. He was actively guiding the strategy. The lawsuit was filed in federal court, challenging the constitutionality of the fine. The legal argument was simple but powerful. Musk's First Amendment rights had been violated. The courtroom's attempt to enforce neutrality had, in fact, suppressed his religious freedom. By fining him for wearing a cross, the court had essentially punished him for his beliefs. The lawsuit immediately caught the attention of legal experts across the country. Institutional scholars weighed in, with many agreeing that Musk had a strong case. Others, however, were skeptical. "The courtroom has rules for a reason," one legal analyst said. "If Musk wins this case, it could open the door for all kinds of disruptions in courtrooms nationwide." But Musk's confidence never wavered. He knew that this wasn't just about him. It was about setting a precedent. He wanted to prove that no one, not even the courts, had the right to infringe on someone's religious freedom. As the court date approached, Musk's legal team filed their briefs outlining their argument in detail. The legal document, meticulously written and filled with references to past Supreme Court cases, was a masterpiece of legal reasoning. But what surprised everyone was that Musk had written significant portions of it himself. It became clear that his legal prowess went far beyond what anyone had expected. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, legal experts, and curious onlookers filled every seat, eager to witness the battle between Musk and the legal system. The atmosphere was electric, and the tension was palpable. When Musk entered the courtroom, all eyes were on him. Dressed in a sharp suit, with the same silver cross still hanging around his neck, he looked calm and collected. This time, he wasn't there as the defendant. He was there as the plaintiff, ready to take on the system that had tried to silence him. The judge, different from the one who had imposed the fine, entered the room. The case had been elevated to a federal court, and this judge seemed more prepared for the complex constitutional questions at hand. Musk's lead attorney began with a powerful opening statement. "Your Honor, this case is about more than a simple fine. It's about the fundamental right to religious freedom. By fining Mr. Musk for wearing a cross, the lower court violated his First Amendment rights. We're here to ensure that no one, not even the courts, can infringe upon those rights." The judge listened intently, but it was clear that the real moment everyone was waiting for was Musk's testimony. When Musk took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. His demeanor was calm, but there was an intensity in his eyes that made it clear he was fully in control. "Mr. Musk," the attorney began, "can you explain why you chose to challenge the fine?" Musk nodded, taking a moment before answering. "I challenge the fine because I believe in freedom," he said, his voice steady but firm. "Not just my freedom, but everyone's. If we allow a court to penalize someone for their beliefs, we're allowing a system that suppresses what makes us human, our right to express who we are and what we believe in." The room was captivated by his words. It wasn't just about the legal argument anymore. It was about the core values that Musk was fighting for. And it was clear that he wasn't just doing this for himself. He was doing it for everyone who had ever been suppressed for expressing their beliefs. As Musk continued his testimony, the atmosphere in the courtroom became even more charged. The judge, though composed, was visibly intrigued by Musk's calm but powerful defense. Musk wasn't just reciting legal arguments, he was passionately defending a fundamental right. "Mr. Musk," the opposing attorney interjected, "the rules of the courtroom are in place to maintain order and neutrality. How do you respond to the claim that your wearing of a religious symbol disrupts that neutrality?" Musk looked directly at the attorney, unshaken. "Neutrality doesn't mean the absence of belief," he said. "It means respecting everyone's beliefs equally. By forcing me to remove my cross, the court wasn't being neutral. It was singling me out because of my faith." The judge raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed by Musk's reasoning. The opposing attorney, however, wasn't ready to back down. "But the rules are the same for everyone, Mr. Musk. If we allow religious symbols in the courtroom, where do we draw the line?" Musk didn't hesitate. "We draw the line where the Constitution draws it," he replied. "The First Amendment guarantees my right to express my religion as long as it doesn't infringe on anyone else's rights. My wearing a cross doesn't harm anyone. It's a personal expression of my faith." The judge leaned forward, his interest clearly piqued. Musk had turned the courtroom into a battlefield of ideas, and it was becoming increasingly clear that he was more than prepared for the fight. As the hours passed, the arguments grew more intense. Both sides presented their cases with passion, but Musk's calm confidence never wavered. He was in control, and it was clear that the judge was beginning to see things his way. But the real turning point came when Musk made one final, unexpected move. "Your Honor," he said, standing to address the court, "I'm not just asking for this fine to be overturned. I'm asking for something bigger." The courtroom held its breath, waiting for Musk's next words. "I'm asking for a ruling that will protect the religious freedoms of every American who enters a courtroom. I'm asking for a decision that ensures that no one ever again will be fined or penalized for expressing their beliefs." The judge stared at Musk, clearly taken aback by the scope of his request. Musk had just turned a simple fine into a potential landmark case, one that could reshape the way religious freedom was handled in courtrooms across the country. The courtroom waited in intense anticipation as the judge deliberated. What had started as a small, seemingly insignificant fine had grown into a monumental case, one that could set a precedent for years to come. The media was buzzing outside the courthouse, and pundits speculated about the outcome. Some believed that Musk had pushed too far, asking for a ruling that went beyond the scope of his initial case. Others believed that Musk's argument was compelling enough to win not only his case, but also a major victory for religious freedom. Finally, the judge returned to the courtroom. Everyone held their breath as he began to speak. "After careful consideration," the judge said, his voice steady, "I have reached a decision. Mr. Musk, you have raised important constitutional questions in this case, questions that this court cannot ignore. The fine imposed on you for wearing a cross is hereby overturned." A wave of relief washed over the courtroom, but the judge wasn't done. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I find that the courtroom's rule prohibiting religious symbols is in conflict with the First Amendment. As such, I am issuing a ruling that will prevent this court and any other court in this jurisdiction from imposing penalties on individuals for expressing their religious beliefs." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Musk had done it. He hadn't just won his case. He had won a victory for religious freedom that would be remembered for years to come. Musk remained calm, his expression unreadable, but there was a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. He had stood his ground, and in doing so, he had not only defended his rights but the rights of countless others. As he left the courtroom, surrounded by reporters and cameras, Musk's words echoed in the minds of those who had witnessed the historic case. "This wasn't about a fine," Musk said, his voice quiet but firm. "This was about freedom. And I'll always fight for that." In the days following the verdict, the media couldn't stop talking about Musk's victory. Legal experts hailed it as a landmark case, one that could reshape how religious freedom was handled in courtrooms across the country. The ruling was cited in legal journals, debated in law schools, and discussed in homes across America. Musk, however, returned to his usual life. His victory just another chapter in his long history of challenging the system. But this time, it wasn't about technology or business. It was about something far deeper. People began to see Musk in a new light. He wasn't just the billionaire tech mogul who revolutionized industries. He was now seen as a defender of personal freedom, someone willing to fight for what he believed in, no matter the cost. In the end, Musk's battle wasn't just about a cross or a fine. It was about the right to be who you are, no matter where you are, even in a courtroom. And for that, Elon Musk had won more than just a legal victory. He had won the respect of millions, and his legacy as a champion of freedom was cemented forever. Elon Musk's landmark courtroom victory set the stage for an era of increased protections for religious freedoms in legal environments. Courts across the country began re-evaluating their rules on personal expression, particularly when it came to the display of religious symbols. Judges, court officials, and legal experts debated whether the ruling in Musk's case could serve as a model for other institutions. In the months that followed, several high-profile cases emerged where individuals, inspired by Musk's legal battle, challenged similar restrictions in courtrooms and other public spaces. These cases, citing Musk versus State of California, pushed the conversation even further, questioning where the line between order and personal expression truly lay. Lawyers who had previously been skeptical of Musk's case found themselves relying on the legal precedent he had set. The decision was often referenced in cases that had nothing to do with courtroom attire. The ruling was used to argue for broader protections for religious freedoms in schools, government buildings, and even workplaces. Musk himself became a symbol of personal rights advocacy. The media, always eager to follow his every move, labeled him not only a tech revolutionary, but also a defender of constitutional rights. He began receiving letters of thanks from religious leaders, activists, and ordinary citizens who saw his case as a beacon of hope in an increasingly complex legal landscape. Musk, however, wasn't interested in the spotlight this time. To him, the courtroom battle had been about principle, not fame. He continued his work at SpaceX, Tesla, and his various other ventures. But now, there was a new level of respect for his tenacity and willingness to take on the establishment. As time passed, the cultural impact of the ruling became more apparent. Musk's victory had subtly shifted the way people thought about freedom of expression in public spaces. For the first time in a long time, religious freedom was being discussed not just in legal terms, but as a vital part of the broader discussion on individual rights.